Welcome back. Sign number 4. We are so glad that you have been joining us as we have just been talking about the 5 signs of the Parish Movement. And you've had the opportunity to meet some of the leaders in the Parish Movement that are helping us think through this and all been writing different signs. And it's no different today. We have with us Miss Majora Carter and Mr. Tim Soerens, who are the authors of our 4th sign and have helped us think through this carefully. And so we're just going to get into the side, and then we're going to get into another discussion with these great practitioners of the parish movement. So, sign 4, collaborating for renewal with God. Is we trust God will invite us to weave new relationships and projects for the common good and our shared common ground. It's never been more important to foster unity between all the diverse followers of Christ within our local contexts. Joining God's renewal within the broken systems of our world, we seek to reconcile fractured relationships and celebrate differences by collaborating across cultural barriers and learning to live in solidarity with those in need. If ever there was going to be a robust movement of unity in the 21st century church, it will likely be lay led, local, and in the neighborhood. When unity and trust grows between us, it is amazing how we can work together and build peace for the common.
So good. We're fans of Tim and Majora. So, Tim, as you even heard that read again, what comes to your mind and heart? And as you two were writing this, why does this matter for the church?
When I was hearing it read beautifully there, Jonathan, I was thinking 2 things. The first was this. As he was describing this sign, what I actually first kept hearing was not so much it to the church, though it's very much given to that. I actually feel like this is like an ache, a call, a deep desire of our neighbors to say, we need something like this. Like, we need y'all to be the church. We need you to be the people of peace who are knitting us together. We need you to lean into difference. We need you to build trust. This is what I feel like it's just a deep desire of almost all of our neighbors, especially right now, amongst all the disorientation and confusion that we're feeling. That's number one. And the second is within the church, there's been this kind of anxiety and hand wringing about who are we and what are we meant to be doing and what even is the church and what is the church for? And I feel like all 5 signs are so critically important and they're all very interdependent. But this one really tells us what we're meant to be about. It's very practical. I want you to point your collective lives towards the renewal that God is doing. And this is how you will be the church. It's all right there. It really points us to the center, I think, of what we need to be about. So if there are churches, congregations, Christians who are like, I'm not so sure about the church, I feel like read this. Let's get after this together. If we walk this path together, we're going to be stunned with the stories that we get to tell our kids and grandkids.
Mm, Beautiful. And Majora, I know that this great work of collaboration at massive levels and also very local levels has been a part of your life work. What came up for you? And as you were writing this sign, what stood out for you?
I don't remember where we started, but we went to collaborating with God as a partner in this, which makes me feel like that's the way we're supposed to be partnering with our communities as well, giving them an opportunity to be an agent, an agent for their own change within their own neighborhoods and their own communities, and really feeling like they're a part of this beautiful thing that's moving in a certain direction that's inclusive of them, but is also bigger than they are because they're building it in a way that literally acknowledges who they are, but also gives them reasons to recognize that it's more than that we have. So that's what I love about it. It is about unity and trust, but you can't really do it unless you feel one powerful and loved and cared for, so that you could actually then hand it over.
So good. Like, you guys lead us on this trajectory that I love in writing it. Yes, this is a renewal. So that it begins with this like revolutionary renewal. But this is what the trajectory of the world is. We want to renew. That's what God wants to do. But then you have this line of that I think is revolutionary in and of itself, where you just say that if there's ever going to be a robust movement of unity in the church, like in our century, you use 3, it'll be lay led, local, and in the neighborhood. And I just love this. centering of the people on the ground, centering of the people in the neighborhood, in the pews, right? Like in our community organizations, like those folks are leading versus the people who often get the pastors of the churches or the elected officials or right. No, the movement's going to happen from the people on the ground. I just love Majora. If you just talk a little bit about, as someone who's been doing this work for so long, like that, what led you to really center the lay, right? Like the local, the neighborhood as what's going to spark this robust revolution or
Honestly, it was coming back home after leaving the community, coming home with my tail between my legs because I really never wanted to come back. And then recognizing that our city and state had literally we're literally planning on building like this enormous waste facility on our waterfront. And despite the fact that we had an enormous amount of waste there. And it was just because I'd been away for a while and having that distance really did make me see my community in a different light. It was like there were these things that were happening to them. And when I discovered it, I remember feeling, oh my God, this is just horrifying because I remember distinctly people feeling that's just what happens in a place like this. You can't fight it.
Mm.
And I was just like, but wait, these are some of the strongest people I know, and who, despite all the crazy that's going on around them, and suddenly they're feeling like they can't. And I really did feel like part of my job, just like literally my reason for being, was reminding them that they had reasons and the agency to not just fight against something, but to fight for something that they deserved, which was a community that was not as messed up as our city and state were planning on continuing to make it.
Tim, do you have anything to add to that? That's just
Well, it's so beautiful, Majora. Part of why we wanted to write it this way is that it really does matter a whole lot how we see. And so if we're always looking to the old guard or the elected or the clergy or the whatever to save us, honestly, we might be in trouble. But if we have the capacity to see the genius that's all around us, the gifts, the strengths, the resilience, the determination, that is, we've all been in a lot of neighborhoods. And when you look through that lens, through ordinary people doing incredible things, I'm always inspired in everywhere I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we not just say, let's do our best collectively to focus on this? If we ask those kinds of questions of who's doing amazing things, we tend to find them. They might not be in the New York Times or on CNN, but their work is profound. And particularly if they're connected with each other, then there's really no limit as to what could happen.
that's so good. I also wanted to ask just another quick follow-up question about that. So this idea of it being a robust movement, I like that language too. When we talk about renewal, why would you guys feel like it was so important to center it as a movement of unity so that people, as they look at renewal, they begin to understand the importance of doing it in a unified way, especially the church?
I can't imagine, at least in any of our lifetimes, that there really will be a profound movement of unity, especially within the church, if it's not essentially organized around place. I just can't really see it happening. But if we take this science seriously and we get after it, what we're going to find is that it's really hard and we actually do literally need each other. So by locating our work towards renewal in an actual place, that is our literal common ground. If we can just lean in that way through the kind of place-based parish or neighborhood lens, I think we'll be astonished with what we can do. So it's not rosy unity. It's a gritty, robust, this really matters for our kids and beyond that we figure out how to renew here.
It is really about the church getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, we are human, and Lord knows we have been living these very human, and in case of us, these very kind of American lives where there just are these like awful separations that keep us apart. But just being able to acknowledge it, I think in any of our neighborhoods, that is our base.
Yeah, and I appreciate you both bringing up that this is work and that this requires practice and that it requires intention and staying in faithfulness. And I think that's the invitation of Christ in our place is of faithful engagement. And so I think that this could be a good place for us to wonder together. And where's a place to start? What would be something you would want to share as a next actionable step?
Recognizing that the walls that we experiencing directly in front of us before we can even have these kind of conversations, it took a long time to build them, and having some patience and recognize that it's going to take some time to take them down is the first step. And then there's always like truly pleasant surprises. I feel like that is like literally the first thing you do. Just and it is a leap of faith. The expectation was that God was going to be like, I got you, baby. And I feel like that is the posture that we need to have, because it doesn't always look good in our communities. It always feels hard generally. And I think we have to recognize that sometimes it might take a little while for the morning to come, but God is listening and God is seeing our efforts. And that's what has to hold true.
So good. So good. The great faith that God is with us, we are with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tim, what comes to mind for you when you think of the next faithful, practical step?
I think maybe two quick ones. One is exactly what Majora is saying, is just to realize that God is doing this. And so to do our very best and have the imagination of what does God want? Not just cosmically in my neighborhood. And there's a lot, I think, of desires of God that we can then make very tangible and practical, and name them, write them down, write songs about them. I think the posture for this sign, especially, that could be most generative is I not only see it, I want to continue on to this work. I want to learn from you. What could we do together? Or what kind of help do you need? Or what have your struggles been? And maybe there's something that I can do, even if it's just keeping reminding you that I think that what you're doing is great. I think there's one is like a observer. Oh, this is great. But as a neighbor, as a participant, as someone who's working for God's renewal, you're saying, let's keep going. And I'm telling you, even as I appreciate you, let's get after this. What next? What can we do? How can I help?
Majora, would you have anything to add to that? That next layer of, okay, let's do this together. Because that's the point of collaboration, right? It isn't just like you can inhabit place alone. You can't really collaborate alone. So yeah, how would you respond to that?
Collaborating alone. I'm just, that's pretty funny. Although, like the misanthrope in me is just, yeah, that's great. I can do that. But no, that's just not the way it works. Because otherwise, if you're not literally inhabiting, the shoes of other folks, how do we like take where we are and use that as an opportunity to open up and see the wounds that are there, so that we can work on healing them together? Because we all got them, especially as we're working to create the kind of spaces in these places where people can honestly feel like we can do this. We can create the kind of love and life that we want. And yeah, I just, it is stunning to me to think that it's both that easy and that difficult.
And this conversation, man. We talk about collaboration, having pastor the church in the neighborhood, much like the ones we talk about for the last 15 years, so that our very existence was about collaboration, right? We weren't a very big church, but once our eyes were opened to the amount of good work happening in our community, it became a no-brainer on how we were going to be a more connected church and like actually have impact in our community. It was just to offer ourselves in collaboration with all this amazing stuff that was happening. And so that's what I hear what you guys saying. It's like when you recognize that God is all about renewal, then you're not trying to create renewal. You're not sitting in a boardroom having like strategic planning sessions about how you're going to renew the neighborhood. You just jump out and join all of the amazing renewal that is happening through regular people every day. So I thank you guys for helping us as churches and faith leaders realize we don't have to be reinventing the wheel. God has already got the wheel turning. All we have to do is be the people of God in our communities, collaborating with all the renewal that's happening. Thank you again to Majora and to Tim. We appreciate your wisdom. And let's just keep being the church in the neighborhood.